welcome to FOSS 365. This is Tom Morley with another video tutorial. This one's going to be on the Natron Compositor and Chroma Keying. What is Chroma Keying? Well, let's take a look on Wikipedia and we'll find out that Chroma Keying, or Chroma Key compositing, is a technique for us to layer two images or video streams together and make them look like they belong to the same scene. That should sound fairly familiar to anybody that went through my previous tutorial. We talked about the ability to merge two different images together using an alpha channel. Well, what happens when you don't have an alpha channel? That is, you are creating footage using a video camera and shooting a subject. How could you create an alpha channel to use for merging your two images? Well, they use a blue screen or a green screen, and you use chroma keying to create that alpha channel. You've probably seen green screen footage in some of your behind the scenes footage of the latest movies that you've watched. It's important to note that chroma keying can be done with a green screen, blue screen, or really any color. But typically we won't use anything other than green or blue because we want to stay away from anything that will closely match human skin color. So in order to actually show you how to chroma key, we need some footage, right? So let's go to pixabay.com and in the search window type in jet, and you'll get different green screen and blue screen video footage. So you can use whatever you want, but I used this green screen footage here of the jet going from the right to the left side of the screen. So let's go ahead and download that. Come over here, click free download, and make sure that it's 1920 by 1080, and then click download. We'll save that file. Now we're going to go back to the window with all of the material, and let's grab this plane here that kind of just hovers in the center of the screen. Click free download, and again 1920 by 1080. Let's download that one. Go back to the search screen, and I need some background footage for the plane here, so let's type in mountain, and you have a whole bunch of footage here that you could use, but we need something that basically matches the pan angle of the plane that's kind of hovering in the middle here. So let's scroll down. I went through a bunch of these and I did find one down here, this one right here. See how it's panning? That kind of matches the angle that the plane is flying in. So let's go ahead and grab this one here. Click free download and make sure that you have 1920 by 1080 selected. Let's download that. Save that one. Okay. Now we're done with the source footage web page, so we don't need that anymore. Let's open up a file manager and go to the download section. There's the 3 pieces of source footage. We're going to grab all those. We're going to move them to a project location. So let's go to a project location. I've already created one for the Natron setup here. And what we want to do is we want to paste them in here. Looks like I already have them, but let's paste them in here. There we go. That's the plane, the flight, and the snow. I do need one more piece of stock footage, so let's go back to the web page, pixabay.com, and let's do green screen. Hopefully it door. Hopefully it finds it. Yep. So type in green screen door, and we want this footage as well because we're going to use this footage a little bit later in a different tutorial. Make sure it's 1920 by 1080 and download that one as well. Okay. Let's go to our download section, move that over as well. Cut and paste it into our project area. There we go. Okay, one thing that Natron doesn't do well at the moment is play or work with MP4 video very well. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take all of these different videos and convert them into a sequence of images. And we can do that with Natron. Okay. So we want to convert the MP4 files into a sequence of images. So we need to go to the folder that has our JET in it and drag and drop the MP4 file there. It should connect to it and it should play halfway decent, but because it's an MP4 file, Natron kind of struggles with it, and you don't want it struggling while you're trying to do multiple filters on this video file. So what you want to do is convert it into a sequence of images so it's just easier to work with for you. So let's go ahead and stop this, and we need a write node, so we'll press W to pop up a write node. We want to go into a JET folder, which doesn't look like I have, so let's create one. Create a JET folder, click OK, go into it, and we want it to be a sequence of images, so we're going to pick sequence, and we'll just call it JET is fine. Don't forget your hashtags for the amount of numerical values. PNG, hit enter. Now we'll hook it up to the read node. We only want this to be, let's say, 293 frames long. So let's make that from frame 1 to frame 293. Scroll back up to our write node, and we've got the file. We can just click render. And when it gets done rendering, I will come back. Okay, finished converting those. So again, let's click on the node graph. We no longer need this video, so we'll delete it. Okay, we need to do one more thing, and that is we need to generate some clouds for the background of our composite. So we are going to take advantage of the shader toy node by clicking the tab key. You can type in shader here to bring up the shader toy node and click on it. We'll connect our viewer and our writer into it. This is what you get for a default setting of the shader toy node, but if you go up here into image shader and you expand that, you can go to load from presets, click there, go to source, and then up to cloudy sky, and that'll give us a cloudy sky background. So we want to have at least 300 frames, so we're just going to put 300 in here, so 1 to 300, and we need to change the directory where we write these images to. So let's click up here and go up one. I don't have a clouds directory yet, so let's make one. Let's go into it and let's name it cloud. Don't forget your hashtag for the numeric values and .png, and click save. Yep, that looks like it's okay up there. Make sure this says opaque, and then click render, and it should start rendering here. There we go. Let's open up our file browser and make sure that it's actually creating them. Yep, it's creating them fine. And I will come back after this is done. At this point, we can start merging our green screen footage over the background. So let's import the jet and the cloud background. One way for us to do it, and probably the easiest way, is just to open up a file browser and drag and drop what we want to use into the node graph. So we want the jet and we want the background, which is the clouds. Okay, and automatically connected to the right node, but I don't want to do that. We're going to just move this right node over for a second. First thing you'll want to do is you'll just want to do a quick check of your footage and make sure that when it converted the movie into the sequence of images, everything went well. So if you connect this and you click play, let it preview, and once it's all done rendering the preview, you can check for any glitches to see if there are any problems with the source footage. And when I did that, I noticed that I did have some problems on the very end here. So you'll see that I only have, click to the end here. It says I have 300 images, but I'm not sure that's entirely true. So let's go to my jet footage here, and let's scroll down to the bottom. And when I did this preview, I noticed that from 294 on, a lot of my images were glitchy. So all I did was deleted from 294 all the way to the end. So we didn't need them anyways. Pretty much 293, if you open it up and look at it, it's kind of the tail end of the ship, which will be fine for this video tutorial. So we will want to change the frame range from 1 to 300 to 1 to 293. So we're going to put in 293 here. Reduce our frame range a little bit, and you'll see that the footage is fine all the way up to 293. So no problem there. I don't really think that you'll have to check your cloud footage, but you can if you want, because we didn't convert this cloud footage from an MP4 movie to a sequence of images, and that really seems to be where the most problems occur. That's when you tend to get glitches out of Natron. So I'm just going to assume that this is good. So we have our jet footage here that we want to merge over the clouds, and we're going to do that using chroma keying. So select your jet, press tab, and type in chroma. And there's the chroma key. We're going to select it. For the beginners tutorial, we're going to talk about the source and background pipes only. Source will be your subject matter, and the background, of course, is going to be what you want to merge over. So you see by default nothing's really happening, and that's because if you look at the chroma key properties over here, the color key it's using right now is black. You could pick the color selector here and try and eyeball a green that is over here, and you may or may not get lucky and hit it. Actually, I didn't do too bad, but that's not what you want to do, really. I'm going to set it back to black. What you want to do is come over here, and this little pop-up tells you exactly what's going on. You want to click here and create a color picker. Come over here, hold your control key down, and then pick the color you want to use as the background color that you want to create an alpha out of. And that's what we just did. And because we have a nice clean green background, we're not going to have to do a lot of work here. So if we look at this, it looks pretty close. It looks pretty good. So let's kind of look at, slide this over, and let's press the 2 key to create another pipe into our viewer. Then go down to the viewer and click on the viewer, and now you can click the 1 key to see it chroma keyed out, and the 2 key to see the original subject matter. And what I'm looking at is these rockets are kind of a dark green, so we may have some issues with these rockets. Anything that is green in your subject, that's where you want to kind of pay attention, as well as the edges of your subject. So let's come down to the viewer and press the number 1 key again. Look right here in the rocket area when I change from 1 to 2. You can see that there's a little bit of issue with the key kind of going through the rockets here, so we need to clean that up, and we can do that using the lift and the gain. Now if I use the lift, you're going to see that I'm not going to really be able to change the fact that there's a problem here with the rockets. We're going to change the RGB here to alpha, and by default key gain was set at 1, and when it's set at 1, if you zoom in here, you can see that there's some problems along the edges. So the first thing we want to do is we want to kind of fix the edges. So you can use the key gain and bring it down just a little bit until all of those little blocks are gone, but you don't want to go too far, just enough so that those blocks are gone. Now we're going to turn the RGB back on, choose the key lift here and bring it down. You'll see that I can move the edge in towards my subject a little bit using the key lift, but you got to be careful about how much you use it. It also has cleaned up the area here, so now maybe I can adjust this. Let's go back to our alpha. There we go. Get rid of all the little edges there. Flip back to RGB, and I can see the edges don't look too bad. And if I zoom back out, and I'm not like jumping right on it, that looks pretty good. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is you can see on the edges here that there's a little bit of green hue along my object. And that's not too bad in this case because the jet was rendered and the background was rendered, and you don't really have a lot of spillover onto your subject, even though we see a little bit. But we can get rid of this little bit of spill by using what's known as a despill node. So let's disconnect our number 2 pipe. We don't need that anymore. We're going to select the Chroma Key here, press Tab, and type in despill. If I can type correctly, there you go. And watch this edge, what happens to this edge as soon as I click on the despill node. You'll see that that green hue goes away. I'm going to highlight the despill node and hit the D key to turn it on and off. See, I turned it off and you see the green hue around here. Turn it on and that green goes away. And that's because the despill node is already set up to help get rid of any spillage on your subject if you're using a green screen. If you're using anything other than a green screen, you'll have to go into the despill node and change your red, green, and blue scales. And you'll see that in the next video. So now I've got a nice clean edge. My rockets are pretty good. Everything looks pretty good now. The only other thing that I can do to make this scene a little bit more believable is to maybe spill over some of this outside background onto our subject matter, and they do have a node for that. It's called a light wrap node. So let's find it, type in light, and there's our light wrap node. The light wrap node takes a foreground and a background. So the A pipe is going to be your foreground, or the jet in this case, and the background is going to be our clouds. So I'm going to move it over here to the cloud. And right now you don't see really anything going on with the clouds warping onto the object itself or the jet. And that's because we haven't increased the intensity. So go to your light wrap properties and increase the intensity. We're going to go really high so that you can kind of see in an extreme case, what's going on there. You can see that the background's kind of spilling onto the subject matter now. So that's going to help us make this look more believable. Of course, the intensity is insane now, so we need to move it down to something that isn't quite so intense. Now you may or may not be able to see the difference without going down to the light wrap and pressing the D key. So look up here in the canopy and down on the edge and stuff, and when I press the D key, you can see that the background kind of spills onto the subject, and that's exactly what we want to get. So you don't, this should be a subtle effect. You shouldn't go crazy on the light wrap, but that's enough. To me, that's a good enough amount to make this look believable. So one of the things we want to do is, you typically won't keep the background connected to the Chroma Key. Once you've adjusted everything you need, we're going to kind of change this setup a little bit. We're going to move the jet over here. We'll move the Chroma Key up, our D-spill up, and our light wrap will go below it. And we'll have our background here, and we need to merge the background into the scene. So we have the light wrap wrapping the background around the jet using the light wrap node, but we need to merge. So select the light wrap, press the tab key and grab a merge node. We could cheat by using the hotkey M, which we probably should have done. It automatically connects it to A because A is going to be what we want to merge over the top of the B background, right? So we're going to pipe the background into the clouds as well, and you'll see that we get exactly what we want. You can hold the control key and create just a point node, and that point node will help us clean up the look of the scene, right? And we'll move up our viewer. We'll bring our right node over. We'll put the right node source into the last node in our node tree. And there is our setup. I'm going to take a quick look at a couple different spots in here. And everything looks good. So we need to write this out to an MP4 file. Let's change the location here. Let's go up one. I'll leave it right in here. We'll call it the jet, and we want it to be a .mp4, and it's not going to be a sequence, right? Because we're going to render this out as a file, and we're going to click save. So we're going to render this out as a movie file, mp4 format. We will highlight this advanced area and increase that to high quality, and on the input pre-mult, and this is important, make sure you select opaque. Okay, if you don't select opaque, you're going to get all kinds of weird results. So input pre-mult opaque in this setup to make it look right, and then we're going to render it out. Click render, and it starts to render. It's going to be a few minutes, so we will let that render out, and I will be back after it's done rendering. It completed the task, so let's go ahead and run the animation, and here it is. It turned out pretty sweet. So that's going to be it for this tutorial. You learned how to chroma key using a green screen background. I hope you learned something. And if you did, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Subscriptions help me out a lot. And in the next one, we'll see how to chroma key over a blue screen background and include color matching so that our foreground matches our background. So I'll see you in the next one.